Well, if the voice of Mother Nature sounded familiar to you in that clip, it's because our next guest has created the voices and personalities of some of the most classic cartoon characters of all time. She's been doing Rocky the Flying Squirrel, she's done Natasha Fatale, she's done Dudley Do-Right's faithful girlfriend, Little Nell, and she's been Witch Hazel, Granny, and hundreds of others. I'd like you to meet Miss June Foray. June, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Visiting on Livewire.
Listen, I would have done better if I'd flown in on my broom. Right?
You recognize the voice? I was talking to you earlier today,
yes.
And as you were sitting there speaking, all these visions were flashing through of these different cartoon characters. You breathed so much life into those characters. Tell us the process, how you go about getting a character for this little flat image that's on the screen.
Well, first, if you're doing it for animation, what you do, the director says, this is the kind of character I want, and they show you a storyboard, and then you experiment. A storyboard are pictures of the characters, and they say, well, what do you think a character like this would sound like? Well, you always know what a witch sounds like, or a fairy godmother, you always know what that sounds like, right? But how does a flying squirrel sound? You know, I've never heard one before, but Hokey Smoke, he came out all right because he was pretty successful. Kind of square, but...
You bet, Rocky.
You're too Bullwinkle. Made like so Bullwinkle.
Now, that's something about the old cartoons. Bullwinkle, it was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And it's come back, it's having a rebirth, and it holds up so well. Do you think cartoons are they getting better or worse? What do you think about the whole field of cartoon work?
I think, we choose to call it animation. It's a little more elegant.
I'm
really.
sorry. Yes, you're quite right. Yes.
Well, I think it's improving all of the time. I think there was a slump, really, after the Bullwinkle show, because the Bullwinkle was really very brilliant, I thought. Brilliantly
so many levels going on there.
Yes, for kids, for adults, for the very sophisticated. It had something for everything. And then Saturday morning got into sort of a dull routine, I think, except for the specials. I think the Chuck Jones specials were absolutely fantastic. But I think with the advent of the Smurfs now, which is, and I do jokey, you know, with it.
You recognize Chuck? Yeah. Sure.
Well, anyway, I think that there is more animation coming back in the voices, in the writing. The whole concept, I think, is a lot better than it was, and I think you're going to find more adult animation coming along, too.
That's great. Now, you work also in other fields with voice work. Tell us about the other kinds of voice work that you do.
Well, I do a lot of looping on
What is that?
film.
I've heard of that. What is that?
Well, sometimes they're not quite happy with the actress or a little boy or a little girl who is appearing on the screen, so I replace their voices with mine. Now, in Jaws, I did a couple of little boys in that.
So
on Twilight...
You will watch the film and
yes.
you will replace the voice.
Yes, now that's after. Now, in animation, we record first, and then the artists draw to your voice.
I didn't know that.
Yes, that's how they start.
Do you have some questions for June? I'd like to ask her. Yeah, there's a lot of questions over here. Yeah. Hey, can you stand up back here? You can just, yeah.
Why did you get started in this business?
First, I liked the money. And second, I thought I had a little talent, and so did Walt Disney and a couple of other studios like Warner Brothers and Hanna-Barbera, so that's how I got started.
Did you think as a young child that you might grow up doing this? Is this something you did, really?
Yes. I started studying when I was 6 years old. I wanted to be a dancer, but then I was fortunate and I caught pneumonia, and I'd be an over-the-hill dancer now, really. And then my mother gave me piano lessons, and I hated those, and I broke my finger, I'm sure, because I playing baseball, and I couldn't practice. So I said, I really want to be an actress. And I studied, and I read, and I memorized parts of Shakespeare in various plays, and I think that's how some of my characters got started.
Yeah.
What's your favorite character that you've ever done?
I don't know. I think I like Natasha. She is a nice lady. I think everybody likes Natasha.
Can you say something for me? Say, Get Moose and Squirrel. That's my favorite. I love
Get Moose and Squirrel.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
When you decided that that's what you wanted to be, like, how did you go about doing that? I mean, when you decided that you wanted to do this, what did you do?
I started in radio when I was 12 years old. I became a professional actress in radio. And then I did a record album for Capitol Records doing all of their children's things. And Disney heard about me and said, hey, we'd like you to work for us. And then, you know, Witch Hazel came along at Warner Brothers, and they said, we'd like you to do that. And then I just started from there. It was an easy progression.
Do you have any secret in doing these? Like, how do you go about doing them? Like, do you hold your breath in or something?
I think you learn how to use your voice without hurting your voice. But I also like to listen to people. And the more I listen to people, the different voices I get and the different accents. And every time I go to a foreign country, I listen to the way they talk and I can impersonate them. And it's a lot of fun that way.
Well, so something like Natasha, you heard that accent, and
yes.
so you could bring that into. You have this storehouse of little memories that you.
Oh, you know, when I go to England, you know, I listen to the Cockneys, and I do it that way too.
Yeah, you do. It's something like the voice of Nell. It's so do that.
Oh yes, little Nell was so sweet. She loved Dudley, but Dudley loved Horace.
And that's so clean, but then your witch voice, they're so husky.
Yeah.
That doesn't hurt your voice?
No, it really doesn't. The only thing that does bother me, now I just did, I worked for Disney's last week. There's a new picture coming out called The Black Cauldron, and I did 2 of the witches in that. And by the time I get home, my throat doesn't hurt, but I use body English. You know, I have to keep going like this, you know, and so I have a stiff neck when I get home.
I'm sure you really have to get into that character, just even though there's no camera on you.
No, I have to do it. I'm going to grow a wart sometime on my nose.
Are there any exercises you have to do to keep your throat in shape while you're working on?
I really don't. I don't smoke, and that's a good deal for all of you. I don't smoke at all. That really bothers my throat.
What do you think is the most famous voice you ever did?
The most famous? Gee, I don't know. What do you think, Fred? It's hard to say. I think Rocky and Natasha are the most famous, but Witch Hazel in the Warner Brothers, you know that.
Do you do commercial work on commercials?
Oh, yes. Have you seen the Captain Crunch commercials, the little girl, Brunhild? I do her.
Do a little bit of Brunhild for us.
Yes, she said, oh, Captain Crunch, it's really good cereal. It's good for you, too.
Before you, really wanted to do this, when you watched TV as a little girl, did you, try to imitate their voices?
All the time, yes. And I would watch old movies and get character voices.
You know, little old ladies, you know. I would listen to little old ladies on the screen, and I guess I stole some of the voices from them.
Okay, yeah.
Did you ever do a character that you didn't like to do, but you had to do it for the movies?
Yes, I wish I could sing the way you kids could sing. Every time I get a part that I have to sing, I am just petrified. I hate it. I always sing in between the keys, but I manage somehow.
I find that hard to believe with your voice being so tuned. You really can't sing.
I can impersonate, you know, I can do a beautiful Zsa Zsa, I can do so many people, but somehow I guess I'm just afraid.
Yeah.
Do you have to travel a lot when you're doing all these voices?
Travel?
Yeah.
Not too much. We, just from home in the San Fernando Valley into the studios.
The big distances out now. It's pretty much all in L.A. though, right?
Yeah, it's about 25 miles.
I noticed that you use a little bit of your own voice in all of your characters. Do you ever use your total own voice for any of the characters?
Yes, I do, and a lot of it is narration for industrial films or educational films, or sometimes a commercial. I'll just use my plain voice. But that doesn't happen too often.
Do you sometimes choose a character that relates to your personality?
Oh, I think I'm a little bit of everything, darling. I am evil, I am good, and hokey smoke, I'm square, too.
Sometimes when you do characters, do you actually feel that you are the character?
I think an actor has to assume some of the characteristics of those people. When I do Rocky or when I do a witch, I really feel evil. I'm not really, really evil, but I think you have to assume some of that and think how an evil person thinks.
June, I watching you these years, I'm so glad you did break your finger, didn't become a pianist or a dancer.
So much.
And you can entertain us all. We'll be listening for you every morning. I get you all the time on television. Thank you very much for being June Foray. Thank you.